Welcome back. It is 9:17. Yesterday was a big day in the fight against COVID-19. The CDC making that stunning announcement that fully vaccinated people do not have to wear face masks indoors or out. And news that the city of Chicago will be announcing Lollapalooza is coming back this summer. It's not official yet. That's expected to happen next week. So how is this all going to work in our post-pandemic world? We are joined by Dr. Shikha Jain with the University of Illinois at Chicago to answer questions for us. Good morning to you, Dr. Jain. Okay,
Good morning.
I just want to start with this news shocked the health world. I think not only those of us who are not in the health industry, but everybody, including professionals like yourselves. So it seems like it just came as an extreme out of nowhere. Does this mean we can finally return back to normal?
So you're absolutely right. It completely shocked a lot of scientists and physicians and healthcare workers around the country. I think the concern is that this was done a little prematurely, and people were really hoping that we'd see more people vaccinated before these types of indoor mask guidelines were removed. We are moving towards a more normal state where, vaccinated people, especially, we know that the vaccine can protect over 94% of those people who got the Moderna or the Pfizer vaccine, and similar numbers with the Johnson & Johnson. But we also know that there are people who can't get vaccinated yet. So there are children who can't get vaccinated yet. There are those who are immunocompromised who the vaccine may not be as effective. So a lot of people feel that this was a little premature on the CDC's part, but there's a lot of excitement, of course, about the fact that now that you're vaccinated, you can take off that mask when you're inside. The question is really going to be, how do we know who is vaccinated and who is not? It's going to be really difficult to know if the people who are taking their masks off inside have gotten their vaccine and if they're fully vaccinated. So remember, fully vaccinated is 2 weeks after your last dose. So that's going to be a challenge as well.
I think that is the biggest question, because I think I read in the New York Times this morning that 64% of Americans are not fully vaccinated or vaccinated yet. That's a huge percentage.
It is. A lot of people are saying that the CDC are using these new guidelines to try to incentivize more people to get vaccinated. And the hope is people will see that if you get vaccinated, then you get more freedoms back. You get the ability to be indoors and socialize and do more things without a mask. The concern is that there are people who just aren't going to get vaccinated and are going to continue to live their lives without masks and put those other people at risk.
Okay, let's talk about these so-called breakthrough infections. Those are cases where fully vaccinated people have still come down with COVID-19. Then yesterday, we learned that 8 Yankees baseball players tested positive despite being fully vaccinated. So should we be worried about that?
So it's not surprising that we have breakthrough infections. Remember, these vaccines are not 100% effective. So with any vaccination, there is a chance for breakthrough. Again, that means fully vaccinated individual. So 2 weeks after your last dose of your vaccine, you end up developing COVID-19. Now, the benefit to the vaccine, even in those breakthrough cases, is most people who have a breakthrough infection don't get very ill. And there are also some thoughts that they potentially cannot spread the COVID-19 to other people. So there is still, even if you have a breakthrough infection after being fully vaccinated, there still is a huge benefit to being vaccinated, because the chance of you getting very ill or hospitalized after developing COVID-19 after getting vaccinated is much lower than if you are not vaccinated.
Okay, finally, let's go to the other big news. The city of Chicago expected to announce next week Lollapalooza is coming back at near to or full capacity. While that is exciting news, do you think that's a good idea? All these people packed together?
Well, that's a very loaded question, Sylvia. So, Lollapalooza is outdoors. So outdoor events we know are lower risk than indoor events. I've been to Lollapalooza before. I know people are jammed together and there's a lot of very close contact. And especially with these new mask guidelines, I'm concerned that a lot of people are going to be at Lolla and there's not going to be a mask to be seen. So I think the real question is going to be, how are we going to ensure that it's a safe event? There's discussion about making sure people are vaccinated, having people have negative COVID tests before they can come in. There's a lot of different things being discussed. So I'll be curious to see how it's launched. I think it is possible to have events such as this in a safe way. But again, it really is based on the people who are attending being responsible and seeing what restrictions and what types of recommendations are put in place to make sure the event is held as safely as possible.
Okay, I'm hearing from you because I know you're in the know that there are ways that they're going to look at. Very interesting, maybe making sure people are vaccinated before they get there, making sure people still have to wear masks. So when the announcement comes out, I think we're going to hear that there's going to be some things people have to consider before they're going to be allowed to go inside. Dr. Jain, always great to talk to you. Thank you so much. You have a great day. Enjoy your weekend.
You too, Sylvia.
When we come back, she was a fun-loving co-host